All right, then. Hello, everybody. This is a continuation of our previous chat about the topic of ET, encountering ETs, understanding the phenomenon of ETs, and the role of consciousness, particularly higher states of consciousness. How important that is uh, to begin to understand other lives that is not familiar on this planet, that is not seen or known much on this planet. Um, so we will continue from where we took off last time. And last time we covered introduction, we covered a few experiences also that some of you had. And I remember Caroline mentioned that he had these experiences um, of, uh, correct me if I'm wrong, dragon-like or lizard-like beings. And I remember in the end saying that if you start the communication, you will discover that actually they're quite humorous. So now I just wanted to follow up on this. Did ever anything go from there? Did you have some form of interaction before we continue and open up um, the topic today?
No, no, nothing. Because I don't want it, so nothing happened.
Okay, that's okay. It's actually also, it serves as a good example, by the way, for many of you out there who might have had the sense of feeling some presence, or even having some input of, of feeling seeing some beings, be it energetic or otherwise. Um, if there is a sense in you that says, I'm not ready for this, you have to honor this. And they honor it as well. If you're not ready, there is no interaction possible. But if you are ready, then interaction is possible. And then something can come from this. So you can say the basic premise of interaction is that of free will. And that is important to remember. Now, obviously, in this topic, invariably, one will touch upon the topic of abduction. And the topic of abduction is a bit convoluted. Like you have conflicting reports. You have reports of people who have been taken, and there's a great deal of fear for them. And we need to briefly address this also because one needs to understand what is that area. Once we have covered that, we come back to the topic of the nature of reality and also seeing yourself in a bigger picture as one's senses may open up to this world of possible encounters. This could be through your work as energy workers, as sacred crystal sound workers, when you give treatments. Many of you have reported that there are some light beings around that assist, that help, that are there. We need to understand this also better. But it doesn't happen only in sacred crystal sound, it happens in other types of forms of energy work. But even outside treatment modalities, it happens to a normal person that they feel some angelic presence or other types of presence. And how do you deal with this? It's not something you learn in school or through families, with the exception of a few perhaps. How to interact, what to make of this. So we will go into this more and see also some initiatives that have started to take shape that try to do this more systematically. let's take it from there then. Abductions, abductions. It's an older theme. This has existed for decades. This experience, and what happens is that people report or have noticed that they have some missing time. Missing time is a typical phenomenon that something happens in that missing time, but you don't have the memory of it. So a typical phenomenon or story would be somebody drives on the land and then um, suddenly he sees perhaps some ship or some form of unfamiliar vehicle, and maybe he has even a problem with his car. The car stops, he goes on the side, and then next thing he remembers, he wakes up or he regains his familiar consciousness, and he's perhaps 2 3 miles further in sitting in the car, and he has no idea what happened. But then he looks on the watch and he realizes 3 hours passed or more or whatever. So this would be some typical case. But it can happen in other forms, at night in bed, or in any other constellation. And obviously, there are more exotic cases in that as well, that they even come back um, to their awareness in another city and they say, well, how did I get here? So, uh, what can you make of this? One way to find out what happened is through hypnosis therapies, hypnosis sessions, regression sessions to that particular moment in time and see what happens. And uh, if the person is deep enough in the session, in the hypnosis part, in the trance-like state, um, he will go through the fear level if he has carried fear. Some have not, but if he has carried fear of the unknown, he will pass that layer, and he begins to re-experience what happens there. And uh, then you might have more information actually as to what happened there. So this is a way to uncover uh, what happened in that missing time. Now, if this happens to a person, and there are some that have researched this to at great length, I would like to refer to just one. That is Dolores Cannon. And actually, in my case, I have had clients who had their share of ET experiences in the hypnosis sessions. And what happens is a familiar scenario is that some group, let's call them a group, checks on you. They simply check on you. Now, this is not a random group. This is some group that actually relates to you. And this is something that one needs to understand better. It has to do um, with the phenomenon of consciousness, with your understanding of reality, that you are more than body and that you have been living before you incarnated here. So if you have been living before you incarnated here, yeah, this must be somewhere. And this must be with some others, likely. It's not necessarily the case that you are completely alone somewhere on the planet or even floating in space as an energy form, although possible, but it's not likely. So this means you have some group you're associated with. That is possible. And they check on you. So there's an expanded theme in order to understand what happened in such abduction phenomenon. You need to understand that you come from somewhere, that you have actually some existence from before. And if you look deeper at the phenomenon of time, is in fact it's not just linear. This is a 3D perspective. So actually what happens out there is happening in parallel. So you have a parallel existence somewhere with your tribe. So they check on you. They check on you because you go through this experience in the 3D reality or realm of consciousness, this universe. And what is interesting in connection with this is some have reported that they have some implants. Now that gets a bit like implants. Why you need implants? This could be for various functions, and in Dolores Cannon and some others have reported through sessions with the clients that often these implants serve as information gathering over the state of the person, or um, locating more quickly the person. Because mind you, if they are somewhere, then they come to this earth and say, where is, let's call this person Frankie. So where is Frankie? You have to find Frankie. It could be, last thing we heard is he was in that city. And how do you find this person? So that would be serving as one possible function. But that is not the case with every group, because some groups have more sophisticated methods to find you. And so this varies. But information gathering is another function. How is the health of that person and other things related. Also information what is happening around. So these are some of the functions, but there may be more. So what is interesting is they could isolate some of these materials. The hard part is as soon as it is extracted, uh, often it was reported, and of course this is not provable. This is just I'm referring to reports. It usually gets taken away by the powers that be, because physical hard proof of material that is not of this earth is not desired. But if you just report without any proof, that nobody cares. But if you have physical hard proof of something that is not of this earth, it's it sets something in motion. And uh, so that's one thing. And they also, funnily enough, they also reported that uh, when this gets extracted, the next time it gets reinserted. So they find again something, and this time perhaps a bit deeper in the system, more hard to remove, so you cannot so easily extract it again. So you could argue, okay, where's the free will? Many reported that when they were abducted, it's not that they said, hey, dudes, I want to come. And then they just go up in a ship or go into a trans-dimensional reality. No, they lose their awareness and boom, they are somewhere else. With whatever mechanism they employed for this. So where's the free will here? That's a fundamental point. Now, when you have the understanding that you have an existence outside your physical body, that you have existed before, and you have now an incarnation experience, it becomes easier to explain. Meaning, with an expanded worldview, these things become far easier to explain and to also to be understood. You have an agreement on the other side. Yes, check on me. But you as a human being, you don't remember this, and you identify with your individuality, who has no notion of all what happened let's say, on the other side or outside of this sphere of the earth. And so you say, I don't want this. So you could say technically it impinges on your free will as that individual structure, but not as the one who actually came into to empower this life. That's pre-agreed. So it seems to have precedence, literally precedence. So abduction has also been used in other ways, a bit more nefarious, human initiated, but we don't go into that. It was reported by other people. We don't need to bother about that. But the typical phenomenon is actually very positive. This is what counts. And we need to understand that fear has a projection power, in the sense what you don't know, you project your fear that you hold in your body into it. And that is why this whole UFO phenomenon is also a bit obscured because of fear. Now, having said that, just a question in the round here. Is there anybody you happen perhaps to know that had some form of abduction experience? Did you hear of anyone? Now, it's not very common, but it exists. Obviously, it's not very common. If it was common, you would hear it much more. But it exists.
With abduction, you mean that they got taken away?
Yes.
I know just somebody that they came to her during the night, but they actually hurt her. So she didn't get taken away, but they came to her room. I think that was
yes,
during a couple days in the night, and she was not. She was in the other country. She was traveling there. I think it was in Australia. She's actually from Switzerland, and so this was a very bad experience she made, and she's still wondering what happened and why it happened to her.
Yes. Again, it would be good if she really wants to know. A regression would be helpful on this. Just to throw this in here, think about this. You have an advanced civilization managing to cross light years of space using transdimensional technologies. So they are really, at least transdimensional technologies. They could also use consciousness technologies to cross that space. They are advanced, but they're also advanced in awareness because you can't do it without that. So they come here, and of all things they could do, they go to someone to harm and put needles and this and that just for the fun of it. It does not make sense. So that for sure is not something they would do. So there is something else there that happened in this case, I suspect, but one would have to find out what really was going on there. But I just want to throw that in. As, if we don't understand the process, then we project something into the phenomenon that something happened. And mind you, experiences happened where pain was experienced in the body because they had to fix something, they had to readjust something, and there was still some pain afterwards. Felt. So it can happen in this way. But if one doesn't understand it and doesn't know what happened, yeah, only the pain remained. And no memory of what happened. And then you say, these guys, whoever they are, this is bad. Because we don't know what happened. So I just wanted to throw that in, and it would need to be evaluated, it need to be researched more to understand what happened in her case. If she really wants that, she should go and look for somebody who could handle that.
Yes. Yeah.
That is certainly a valuable thing. Now, let's come back to, or let's leave this abduction. This is a big topic, this abduction. It could be on its own, a whole thing. But let's perhaps move further because, as we mentioned in the previous conference, ETs can take any shape, any form. It could be physical or non-physical. And when we relate to ETs, there's a lot of non-physical going on, likely more so than in the physical. And for a practitioner who's dealing with subtle energies or with Chi field and pranic field, energy work, or as anybody who has just a bit more of a sensitivity to those fields, might perceive more life forms out there. Now, mind you, this is also a bit a tricky area in terms of what is illusion, what is real. And that is my next question to you before we dive deeper into this. How do you differentiate if you have imagined something that, let's say you give a treatment and you feel some entities? How do you know this is real? And how do you know this is not an illusion? How do you solve that for yourself? So that's my question to the round. It's a good question. Eh?
Yes.
I can say something
Yes.
because it happens mostly in every treatment that someone is coming around, showing up. And it first started actually with myself, that someone was standing behind me. And as I think I mentioned that, I think there were Syrians coming, and they were really, really tall. Now there's always somebody standing behind me. But it also happens when I treat people with sacred crystal sound, and especially if I do the sacred crystal sound remote, where the people isn't in the room, then I can see different. I think there are Syrians standing around and doing their job, helping. So the first time I saw them, it was actually, how could I say? I just thought it was like some kind of light experience, and it didn't scare me because they didn't. What can I say? They came really gentle, just showed up a bit and then went away and showed up again, so that I had the time to really get used to them. So. But actually, I'm not scared of things like that, because my first experience were spirit animals coming around. So it wasn't, how can I say, it wasn't a really surprise that other
Yes.
they were showing up. So it wasn't scary at all, and they communicate, but in a way I just can understand. They're not talking. So
yes. Now, how do you feel in your body when the experience happens? Is there anything, because some people say, oh, if something happens specifically in my body, I know it's true or it's not true. Do you happen to have some signals in your body or feeling, or you just know this is still, how do you know it's not an imagination?
I think it was some kind of going step by step. I made different experience, and so the first one, as I told you, was the one with the animals, and then I saw other beings, and now it's like a kind of ritual that I sit down and I open my chakras, and then then I can feel this these goosebumps, and I know, okay, everything. I feel it again. Everybody is here. So that's the feeling I have, really. So, oh, okay, everybody's here, and then it's like, I say hello to them, so I really can feel if he touches my hands.
Beautiful.
So that feeling in the body, yeah, the goosebumps, I would say, and the opening of the head, the crown chakra. I think that's the feeling.
Good. Very good. How is it with the others? How did you experience it? And how do you know this is not an imagination?
Yeah, it's really a process, and I went through and I'm going through, so I get proofs that it was true, and so I can trust more and more to what I perceive. And when I perceive things on finer levels, like other beings, for example, it's kind of like, from a feeling point of view, I would say I feel very calm, not emotional, very calm,
Yes.
still, and maybe also quite centered in the heart. I would maybe describe it like that. And so I know I'm not, and I don't have many thoughts. So I know it's not a story I made out of my fantasy or something like that. Yeah, I would
Any
describe it.
physical sensation other than feeling calm? Perhaps it doesn't have to be.
Now, in case of other beings, you mean like extraterrestrial beings? Because there's so many different sensation I can have. But with extraterrestrials, I mean, what is extraterrestrial anyway? Um, but so you talked about angels and stuff like that, right?
Well,
So
we did define it in the beginning, in the last conference. We
mhm,
defined it as beings not of this earth, and we can say yes, not humans, human intelligences, but when it's not of this earth, we don't refer to plants or animals either. We also don't refer to potentially beings that, who knows, maybe they are from within the earth. But we meant really from further away.
yeah.
So that could be in physical form, but they have managed to traverse big space and come and can materialize, dematerialize, can be even half this or half not. Or they can be not even living in the 3D world. They don't assume physicality, but they are, you could say, living in subtler stratas or energy forms of universes. We could call them also astral realms. And this could be anything. It could be light beings of forms. Uh, angel expressions are the same. They just inhabit certain layers of reality. So it could be literally anything in this way.
Okay. I was just a little bit confused because you mentioned angels, and I was like, are they from this earth or not? And so thank you for the explanation. So angel experiences, I could feel it emotionally, so that that it was so beautiful that I needed to cry. And I could feel a lot of energy. Now that I talk about it, I feel it in my hands. And extraterrestrials, as I like, I had contact with beings from other planets, and they told me that they're from other planets. And there it was just more, it was not a body sensation I got. It was more talking with them by, hmm, I don't know, images, and it was not really sensual.
It's a form of
Feeling on my body.
telepathy then. A
Yes.
form of
Yeah.
telepathy.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Now, this gives you some information. For example, and by the way, this is very well said. It's a process to discover. It's a process you get gradually more acquainted to. And you're right. You touched upon, if it's the imagination, the experience in the body is a bit different. In imagination, which means it's more head-centered in the sense, lots of thoughts that can happen. It's somewhat detached from a bodily experience. But when you have an experience of, as you said, it's some entities are around, there is some form of energetic experience interchange going on between your subtle body and their counterpart expression. And the higher vibrating, we call it like this right now, not going deeper into this, but let's say the higher vibrating expression that comes to you, the more feeling of love, the more feeling of calm, the more feeling of peace, the more feeling of bliss occurs, the more feeling of taking care occurs, because they embody this in the vibrational field. So if you have some experience of angelic forms, angelic beings being in the neighborhood, naturally having a higher vibrational expression, you might feel this on the level of the feeling. You might feel this is so soothing. But let's say you have, as you mentioned, some communication with some forms of ET rays that is physical. The feeling might be different, might be not so strongly felt as soothing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because they are perhaps, even though more advanced as a civilization than the human race, they may not have that kind of bliss vibration as intense as perhaps others who are not even incarnating into the physical. So these are pointers for you. These are pointers for you. If an exchange is really experienced as full of bliss, it has to do with that being living that state of bliss and radiating it, and then you merely come into that field, an experience that like it rubs off, you could say. It rubs off something. You begin to sense this is an incredible presence. So that will be giving you the information. You deal with some high vibrating being, and that is one form. Now let's say with Syrians, you call them Syrians, maybe they told you, Felicitas. You mentioned the feeling associated with it was that calm and gentle. So that's an information in itself that speaks of what they radiate, okay, in that moment, what they radiate. So this gives you an overall feel, and obviously that gives you confidence. And in both cases of you, it's true that if we don't want it, they don't come. They don't come. You will not experience it. Now, it doesn't mean you want to go and have this, but it just means if it happens, it has a function. If it happens, you experience it. The more you know about this, the better you can handle the experience. The more conscious you go into the experience. That is the purpose of this, also one of the purpose of this ET conferences, to enable you to go more consciously into such experiences. This is the time to become more mature in the sense of becoming aware that there's so much more going on than just what we perceive with our physical senses. And we have denied ourselves that understanding due to education and society paradigms over hundreds and thousands of years also. So this is the time to kind of lay this open again and become, you could say, cosmic citizen. It's part of our awakening to, you could say, begin cosmic socialization, meaning coming out of this quarantine. The word quarantine is here justified. Any quarantine right now in this pandemic is a joke, honestly, but this is not the topic. But this is a quarantine. Earth is in a quarantine in this way because it's self-imposed. Too much fear response. And so you as energy workers and alternative practitioners, and also anyone who has that type of sensitivity, you lay the way for helping others if they happen to experience this and they narrate it to you, that you can possibly explain this better to them, to build confidence in them, that this is okay, it's natural. There is so much life going on out there, they should not be afraid. We are not at the peak of the evolutionary scale right now. We are merely entering level 1 coming from 0. And we touched upon that in the previous conference call where we said the experience of stillness, the experience of the now, your cosmic origin. This is you could say, it's your true baseline. It's your cosmic nature. Having that as a collective experience in the human race makes this human race lift up and enter level 1 to be a civil. From a cosmic perspective, they would be considered civilized race. Before that experience is not quite civilized. And mind you, there's a reason. Look at how this world functions, what mess is out there. That's not civilized. But with that experience, that's a state of awareness. Remember the phenomenon of consciousness? That's a clear state of awareness, a transcendent state that actually makes you experience that all life is connected. And that changes everything. If all life is connected, you are connected with everything. And if you are connected with everything, your behavior changes. Your compassion grows. Because you begin to feel everything more around you. That reflects in your behavior, in your thinking, in everything. And society changes. Your expression will be, they don't harm nature, but they don't harm each other either. There is more compassion. Society as such will change. That means they enter civilized stage from a cosmic perspective. So we are in this process. So understanding better how to interact with these entities, we can learn and help others when they begin to awaken to this, become more sensitive to this. Yes. So there are initiatives, in fact. I mentioned one, this Dr. Stephen Greer. He has this initiative called the CE5 initiative. And he's focusing on some protocol where groups gather, smaller groups. They gather and they go outside, and then they have forms of meditation and remote viewing, and they reach out, you could say, to extraterrestrial life outside this planet, could be in the solar system or further out, and then vector them in or direct them into where they are. That could be they could be in any country. These groups exist all over the world, and then these people try to record their experiences, meaning they have perhaps some form of recording device with them. Depends how well equipped these groups are. And then suddenly you see some forms of spaceships appearing briefly towards them. They have ET experiences. Now, ET experience of the fifth kind, meaning human-initiated experience, that they would also come in form and interact with them, may or may not happen. But what seemingly happens regularly is that they really show up and show their presence, but may not come off the ship. Some do, some don't. So that depends again on the groups, the group combination. And what they have commonly expressed is, if there is somebody in the group that holds some fear, it is less likely that some entities would show up because of the fear. It keeps them away. And that is interesting, actually. And that's totally independently. So it is a self-discovery of these groups as well, how much fear is still there that they may not even have known, have not been aware. Because it's one thing to talk about and another thing to really experience it. And as you mentioned, Leah, it is a process, it's a growth to ease into this. And therefore, this can happen to people who think they have no fear about this and that. They always want that, but when it is really happening, they say, wait a minute, I need more time for this. It's okay. It's okay. They don't mind. So, so this is an initiative that is one example that keeps going on. They systematically try to act what they call ambassadors. It's an initiative. And for those who hear this now, if you're interested to look into this more, go to Dr. Stephen Greer's website, seriousdisclosure.com, I believe. And you could find more information about all of this. So that's one initiative. And but here's the funny thing. You as practitioners do this all the time. What do? Many of you call them in. We call them your higher friends. So you get your share of experience. But it's time to understand that better. So you have also initiated contact. So it happens all the time. It's just that we don't call it that way. But it happens all the time. But it's good to be more conscious about this. I want to move this a step further now. And that is, my question to you is, as you do your form of treatments, and you become aware of the presence of some beings be it angels or other forms of beings, some sense of presence. You do your treatment. I would like to know from you two things. One is, have they engaged in a helping process in the treatment? Number one. And if so, what was it? How did you perceive this? Number two, have you engaged with them while you treat somebody? Have you had some kind of engagement process with them that say, oh, why don't we look at it from that side or from that side or whatever? Did you become aware if you were doing some interaction with them or not? So these are two questions. And I would like to throw this out again, just to see what your experience is, also for the viewer, so they hear that too. Because many of you who see this may have been in a similar situation, either as a practitioner or even just normally in the day yourself. Yes. Anyone?
So not in sacred crystal sound treatments. I see them when I ask them to be present, but actually I don't really see them interacting. I don't actually ask them to help me. Never came to this idea. I just know they are here to help, but it's not that I ask them further, to help me or to help the person that gets the treatment. But I do another treatment where I help people to solve traumas and also physical symptoms they have. I help them to see situations that are responsible for the symptoms. And then I ask their friends, their higher friends, to transform these images, these feelings, everything that belongs to this situation that is now ready to be transformed. And yeah, so there I really ask them to help.
Do you see then what they do?
Well, not all, because they do many things, but I see that they do, many things. And also sometimes the people feel certain things they do, or maybe see also certain things they do. But there's so many, Mm-hmm.
When you say many things, could you
many
describe
layers.
that? Could you describe how that feels to you?
I don't really feel it, I see it.
And what would that be when you say see it? When you say many things, it's a bit vague.
Yeah. For example, energy channels can get flushed with energy, or some areas in the aura, you say in English, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some things get removed and other things get filled, or like they fill it up with more light or with colors.
Yes.
I see that some things flush out of the chakras, different parts of the body, like old energy comes out. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. I would like to say there that some people experience this more clearly and some people experience it less. When it is less clearly experienced, it feels like when some work is done on the body of a client, and one feels a light being is triggering something. Maybe one even feels the light being focuses on certain areas of the body. that is a sense of they attend to something, but we might not see clearly as to what it is they do. But often what one may feel is there is some dynamism going on there. We cannot perhaps decipher further what actually is that dynamism. Now you describe energy flows in or all the energy goes out and something else goes in or some clearing. That's more information. But sometimes we may not even perceive that, but we feel there's a dynamism in the area. And you get that sense it's triggered by that being. So this means it's a first stage of sensing that there's some form of help going on. And when we pierce through that, we might get more information. Like this. Now, just to tell that and into the round, also for the viewers, that we might not always see all the details, and that's not so important. The fact is they are there and they help. That's enough. Again, our worldview must expand to understand that we are not just physical, that we are composed of layers. Then we can begin to understand better that something happens. If we don't have that perception, we will not likely to have perception of ET phenomena of the non-physical kind, because our perception is close to that. We would not be likely working in the energy field either. as practitioners, we would be more in the physical area. So, but in sacred crystal sound, this can happen too, or in sacred auto-tuning, I've heard from practitioners it happens. Perhaps, Carolee, you have had some experiences of that form. In case yes, could you let us know a little bit? I don't hear.
Yes, this the treatment of auto-tuning, I have no such experiences, but I feel the presence of these entities like a density, and sometimes there are more, sometimes there are less, but I just know they are here. I
Yes.
don't see or something, but I just know it.
Yes.
I have 3 they are always here, also now. I feel it on my shoulder and my back. And sometimes during a treatment or so, sacred crystal sound, I see some shadows, gray shadows. And I think that are entities who are here. But otherwise, no. I have no other experience like this.
Yes. Now that's an interesting thing. That brings us to another it's actually good you mentioned this, the gray shadows. There are 2 things going on. One is how we decode the expression of energy beings, vibrational expression. And we can decode it into gray shadows. We could have decoded it to something else in our physiology, how we read this. But let's take that up. If you compare those with what you mentioned, the 3 beings that are with you, do they feel different or do they feel the same?
No, they feel different. These shadows, you mean?
Yes.
Yes. No, they feel different. They are. I don't know. I can't describe it, but it's another energy.
But when you focus on your body and you sense, let's say you bring that back to your awareness, the gray shadows, and then you bring back to your awareness the 3 beings that are with you. How does that feel in the body? on a feeling level, is it the same feeling or is it different?
The entities, the three ones, they are more warm, they are more dense than like the shadows. The shadows are much colder or cooler, much, how to say, not thinner, but I can't, not so dense. It's like really like a
That's
shadow or a navel or something like
some
this.
fog like,
Yes, but it's really a light energy.
also light.
No, not light, it's light. Not
Some
heavy.
yes, some not heavy feeling, a light feeling, you could say.
Yes.
Good. All right, so that's good to know, and it trains you to hone your senses. It trains you to hone your senses to go back to your body. How did this feel? How did this entity feel? It's a conscious process. You bring it into the conscious realm, and that interaction, that process, helps you to fine tune your inner sensing. It becomes more proficient. It's like training a muscle. You become more proficient in actually sensing this and being able to differentiate this more. Because there could be a lot of things happening. For example, some people have, in sacred crystal sand and likely in other treatments, reported that some of the ancestors have come. Maybe the grandmother or the uncle or the mother or the father who passed away. Suddenly they were there too. How was that expression felt as an energy in the body? Like, how do you feel how this is compared to, let's say, some angelic form or some other light beings? How do they feel? These are different vibrational states.
Mhm.
And when one starts to train more your inner senses, you begin to see the differences. So when you have these experiences, pay attention in the sense, how does it feel on the level of the body? How does this feel? What's the vibrational state of these beings? Because there's a lot that you can learn from this. Reading energy fields is an endless thing. Reading energy fields can give you all kinds of information, down to the details. There are no secrets. It's all in the open. Reading the energy field of an angelic being, if one could, you would know their realm, you would know how it is there, at least glimpse-wise. You would know their story. If you take any other being, like let's say some ET that is non-physical that has come, you would sense their story. It's a matter of training. There's no end to it. You are all knowing. It's just that we haven't trained it. We are truly all knowing. We haven't trained it. And it's a continuous process. Now, one thing that needs to be mentioned, obviously this could get very complex out there because of so multivariate, so many life forms out there. This could be really complex, but this is a reminder, keep it simple. Your focus is here. It's not out there. Your focus is here. An aspect of you is already out there anyway, so it's taken care. But while you are here in the human body doing your thing, don't get distracted from the treatment you give, for example, or from whatever form of activity you do. Don't get distracted, but learn from it at the same time. You can. So your sensitivity grows to these types of phenomena, and you can help others whenever they ask you, and there will be people coming. then you can say, ah, was it this, this, that? Because you had experienced it. How about you, Cindy?
I have, well, I've got the same experience as Carolee. I know when they are there and who it is. So I also do not see all the time entities, but I just sense that I hear. So I've got like a mix of awareness, so to say. Like one time I feel the energy, and of course when it is to a certain entity, the energy field remains the same. They always feel the same all the time.
The same one when it comes
Yes,
again and again, you start to feel it's like a signature. Ah, it's them.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So
That's a
I
good
don't.
observation.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily see them, but when I feel the energy, sometimes they give me the name. Then the name of the entity flashes through my mind. With one particular, I have to say, when I do sacred crystal sound on distance, I sense much more than when I do them in person. And it also depends on the client. So with one person, I see a lot. Every single treatment, I see quite a lot. One time, out of the blue, there were like 2 gray entities. And I felt that they were good. But I did not know, I did not understand why they actually would be there. So I asked them very shortly, why are you here? And then I got the feedback saying, we're cleaning up. And they were, it is like, when I ask, it can be like telepathically, but at the same time, I also read their energies because they felt like factory workers. They are like, we are here to clean up, and when a job is done, we are going. So that was all that I had to do, and they were not interested in anything else. So during the treatment, I was just observing what they were doing, and some other entities were coming in, doing some other parts and pieces on the body. And sometimes I ask what they were doing, but then maybe I shoot back into my head and I don't receive the answer. So I'm training myself to stay on a certain level of awareness or consciousness to actually receive the message.
Just for that, for you, focus on the body. Focus on your body.
On my body, yeah.
Yes, feel your body. Then you get it there. Meaning you move away from if one gets excited and one shifts into the head.
Yes.
You come back away from that. And when you feel more the body, because the body will tell you, it's just the inner sensing, and having more the feeling in the body is your gateway to inner sensing. Away from the head, in that sense. So that could help you when you notice, oh, now I'm in the head, feel your body.
Yeah, because when I do the treatment, I see things through like my eyes, although they're closed. So actually, I want to see it, because when you're physical, you actually look through your eyes, but now they are closed, you still have this habit to actually look in through your eyes. So then I'm observing the situation. I want to know what's going on, and then automatically and most likely I will go back into my head, and then it's like, oh yeah, I have to bring myself back to the body. But I was like, no, now I miss half of the story. So it is like trying to find out the balance of actually observing the situation of what's going on, and also getting the messages as what they actually want to share. Sometimes they don't want to share anything at all.
Yes. This has to do with trust. Less doing, more sensing. Less doing, more sensing. Then it's that layer stabilizes. And naturally, if we have a curious mind, we want to know as much as we can in a given moment. But that will take us away from our treatment.
Yeah.
When we are giving a treatment, it would take us away from what we do. And what we are cultivating here is that these things can happen in parallel without you doing. Meaning you can It's like as if the experience comes in and you still attend to your treatment modality, and the other experience comes in and you perceive this. Now, when the treatment has ended and you sit and you roll it back in your mind, the information is all still there. What happened? And you can become more clear as to the immensity of the overall experience of such a treatment. We haven't talked about this, how immense this can be. So, because as we mentioned in the past, with such types of treatments, there's a lot of things going on. It's like a like a train station almost.
Yeah.
So, but it's good you bring that up. When we get distracted, another way to say is you feel this, something is happening there. And we get excited. Oh my God, that's the signal. Focus on your treatment. And as you focus on your treatment, you move away in case you shift it up into the intellect. Then you move away from it because you focus back on your treatment modality. And that helps you getting back. You're not losing that other experience. It is like as if it's getting recorded. And you can recall it after. Because you are multidimensional. These things happen in your field and you can recall it anytime. That's the wonderful thing. You can do your thing. This is happening. You sit back after the treatment and you recall the experience, and then you can observe all these other things happened. And then you say, oh, now it gets clear what happened there. That's what you normally then would say. Now I realize, then this and this happened, but I was so focused on my treatment. That's how it works. Wonderful. Naturally, you could say, where is this all leading to? On one hand, having stated these things, that to become more conscious of your processes, sensing the body, you could use that outside treatments to interact. You could begin to interact with them. That's one thing. At the same time, becoming more conscious of these subtler processes in your awareness and becoming aware of other entities helping. In fact, it will give you more information about yourself too. You become more aware of who you truly are also. It's a wonderful thing. That you are more than the human body. You're more than the mind-body structure called, let's say again, Frankie. You're more, you have a bigger story to tell. And you become more aware of that too. So you're more yourself. By being in a human form, you're more yourself. That gives you tremendous peace, confidence, happiness, directedness, become more clear what you want to do. It has so many benefits coming from it. So, in fact, this type of thing is self-treatment. So you treat somebody, but actually it helps you to become more aware of who you really are. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. So naturally, the homework will be in your next treatments, be aware what's going on, what is happening here, and just feel your body, how it is responding, learning to read the signals. The more you learn to read the signals, you pick up more of the story that is happening in the room while you treat. And you can sit back after the treatment and roll back the experience, what you just went through as a practitioner, and you can dissect more, you can see more. This is training of inner senses, becoming more attuned, more, you could say, awake on that level, and see more. It's a never-ending field. It's fantastic. Does that make sense? It's like bringing it from the passive to the active layer. Huh? Beautiful. Very good. So I don't know how much time passed already, but I think we've probably hit easily the hour mark.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that. And then we could go into a third conference, and we could determine when that is, and we could dive still more into this. The rabbit hole goes further and further. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's okay.
All right. Then thank you everyone who has come to check back with this conference and see where this leads. I hope you have that you could benefit from this and be inspired with one or the other suggestion, and then we could announce already when we could do the next one. It will be below when we publish this video. There will be a date. You can see when the next conference will be. And then let's see where we get from there. All right, and so take care, and thank you all for coming and sharing your experiences. And then see you next time.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
See you.
All the best.
Bye all.
Bye.
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 Bye.